Welcome to the Spike Camp podcast. Spike Camp is a free online community for hunters that support conservation. It's a great place to share stories and your experience with other hunters. As a member of Spike Camp, you get access to all of our hunting live streams, discussion channels, contests, hunter resources, and events that we host. Membership to Spike Camp is free. Our only ask is that you are a member of a hunting or conservation group before you register. Head over to spikecamp.com to join us. This episode of the Spike Camp podcast is brought to you in part by Alpine Riflecraft. Alpine Riflecraft is a Canadian firearms company that is redefining what an ultralight mountain hunting rifle should be. Their flagship product, the Zenith rifle, starts at 4.5 pounds and is the lightest carbon-barreled bolt action on the market today. Alpine Riflecraft rifles are 100% engineered, designed, and manufactured in Canada. To learn more, visit their website at alpineriflecraft.ca.
All right, everybody. Welcome to night 2 of the Goat Camp series. Tonight we're going to mix it up a little bit, and the boss over here at the Goat Alliance, Marvin, he's going to take the wheel on this show. Before I turn the keys over, I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody, all the companies and private donations that we had for the giveaways on this series. So starting off with Hilleberg, we gave away the tarp last night. We have Ape Equipment giving away a set of gaiters, Stone Point outdoor gear. We have one of Cody's kill kits, his Alpine kill kit, and then a Weekender food bag, which is really cool. And then our galley gave us a set of trekking poles. And the private donations came from none other than Ed Thompson and his dad, Brian. We're going to give those 2 pieces away tomorrow night. They're really cool. It's a handmade rifle sling that Brian made. I had no idea that, I'm not surprised by the talent that comes from the Thompson family when it comes to making things, but I had no idea he was a leathersmith. But yeah, it's a really cool rifle sling. Somebody's going to be really lucky to carry that on the mountain. And then Mr. Goat Cam himself, Ed Thompson, created some really cool prints from his goat cameras, and we've got one really neat print that we're going to give away. I'm going to have to figure out the shipping. Hope maybe it's a Lower Mainlander that wins that, and I don't have to get too nervous, but we'll see. But anyway, we're going to start the show off. I'm going to turn it over to Marvin, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about the Goat Alliance to get going. And all right, buddy, the show's yours, man.
Excellent. First time we're in the saddle here, so we'll see how it goes. But we got some good speakers lined up, so I'm pretty excited. Actually, I've actually seen Chuck on a few occasions, and he hasn't told me the goat story. So I think he's been holding out on me. We're going to be neighbors in the future, so hopefully in the future he won't be holding out like this. But he's I'm looking forward to that story. And then Ed, that was with Ed and Chuck, and then Ed did another goat hunt more recently in the winter. So really interested to kind of dig deep into that one. So what we're going to start off with, I did a little bit of a recap last night on the Goat Alliance, so I'm probably not going to do the full tonight on that, but just want to touch on a few additional items that I didn't cover. I didn't cover things like memberships and I covered who we are and what we do. But yeah, again, we're a North American organization formed in 2014. I talked about the beginnings last night. I think it's pretty cool how grassroots it all started, and it really is still what we're doing. Citizen science, looking out for goats in North America in about 13 jurisdictions where they exist to try to keep those populations healthy, because there is concerns, and goats really are often a forgotten species. And kind of what lured me into it, I'm a sheep guy as well, but I'm a goat guy, probably next level, have been all my life. If you were to ask me personally what animal is the nearest and dearest to me, and if I was to pursue one animal only for the rest of my life, it definitely would be goats. Probably because it's not what everybody's doing, and they are a bit of an underdog in some ways, is just as far as being overlooked. And in my view, you hear that a lot. They're kind of the most underrated North American big game animal in many ways. But really the conservation component and what got me into it is I hunted goats for a lot of years, and When I was approached, I guess it was 3.5 years ago, about being on the board, I just felt, it was my time to give back. And I think that's really important. Um, for those of us that have, hunted and taken from the land over the years, it's time to give back and kind of to share our knowledge and our passions and our time and our resources for something positive. And I just felt goats is the calling, and that's where I want to be part of, is the Goat Alliance. I really believe in the organization and kind of what we do. Again, I mentioned last night, I'll quickly do it again tonight. The backbone of our organization is our Science and Conservation Committee. So those are kind of the top biologists and academics in the industry throughout North America. And that really gives us a lot of backbone. We're science-based. We're not, and I'll get into this a little bit, kind of stay away from the politics as much as we can and stick to the science and stick to the facts. And that's really what we like to do. And that's how I even I'm pretty focused on the educational component myself, just because of my years kind of in the field. And that's a big component of what we are as well, is just getting that education out there, mentorship, and working with different agencies. We are really connected with a lot of agencies. We don't have millions of dollars to spend. So we really get it from our memberships, and we get it from sponsors. We have great sponsors, and even private individuals. So I mentioned last night, we're doing that West Kootenays Goat Project. We got sponsorship individually from Justin Kaluski, the guy that,
Wow.
harvested the world record goat. I've got the goat behind me, the replica. It's individuals that are just willing to give. Another organization is Abbotsford Fish and Game. They have given us significant dollars a couple of years in a row. That has gone into the Calming Project in the West Kootenays. We're looking at another project with their funding up in the McBride area. Sitka, we get sponsorship from Sitka. We're doing an educational program update with $10,000 from Sitka. Silver Core out of the Lower Mainland in Vancouver is also donating a lot of their time to get our training education online with them. So that's a key component of who we are as well. Working with the different agencies, the government jurisdictions, the biologists, First Nations, Silkatine, we've worked with them this last year. We're going to continue to work with them. Working with the Indigenous down in Nevada as well. So that we're very kind of spread out and utilizing the different resources that we can. So partnerships are huge, as in with any organization. So getting into, I'm going to touch on this because some organizations do get into more the political. We have an advocacy policy. We really stick to advocating really for where there's goats involved. So a few weeks ago, a few of us put in some statements and concerns about a potential development in the Lower Mainland, Bridal Veil. They're looking at a resort development. Well, there's goats in that area, so we are concerned about that. We don't get into the broader politics concerns that are going on in the world, or even gun control. Like, we kind of stick to kind of our mandate, and that is goats. And that, as a charitable organization, also you have to be concerned about how far you push your advocacy. Otherwise, you could lose your charitable status. So we've got a really solid advocacy policy we put in 2 years ago, and that kind of keeps us focused and not getting distracted and weighing into kind of issues that could lead us astray and lead our membership astray as well. So I will be honest, most of our membership were hunters. Probably up to 98% of our membership are hunters. And if they're not hunters, you're passionate about goats, which most hunters that are going to be members are. So we got to kind of, stick to our lane and stick to our backers as well in that regards. I was asked about our memberships and sort of what that all entails, because that's a big component of our funding as well, as far as kind of keeps us going every year. And I was asked last night, or someone that was watching last night, he's on tonight as well, and from others, kind of where we at with our membership. So I will not dive into the deep on We have an annual membership that's $45 US, supporting membership that's $10 a month, sustaining memberships $25 a month, and then our life member, that's sort of what I want to focus on. So I think that's kind of our bread and butter of those that support us, but we'll take any membership, of course. But people ask, well, what does that give you? So just to be upfront, it's $1,000 US if you're in America. We also make it $1,000 Canadian if you're Canadian. So we just kept it simple and go straight across in that regard. And then looking at the list of kind of the benefits, other than being part of a great organization, you know, that's supporting a great animal that does need help. I'm just going to run through. Our website doesn't have all the detail on it, so I'm going to have to make sure that that's upgraded. But as a life member, initially you'll get a 20% discount on your merchandise order with the Goat Alliance. You'll get $5 off initially with your Wild Sheep Foundation. So we're a chapter, an affiliate of the Wild Sheep Foundation. Then we get a monthly subscription to our newsletter. It's called The Bleat, and then access to live webinars and early access to recordings, as well as raffle prizes. Then you kind of get first dibs on any of the goat counts that we're doing as far as registration. Like I said last night, a lot of our goat counts have been in the US, and in some of those counts, we get a lot of people that want to step forward. Like we can be in that 20 range. And so sometimes we have to limit that. So we'll kind of give first dibs to our members, and in particular to our life members. So I think that's important to know. And then all sorts of partnership discounts. So we're talking Gastronome, 10% off, Alpine Fuel, 15% off, Vortex Optics, 15% off, Onyx Elite, 3-month trial, Tag Hub, 6-month trial, Go Hunt, 20% off the first year of the insider subscription. In the US, for our US members, you get the Silencer Central Suppressor. I don't think we have any of those in Canada because we're not allowed to have those. So then I do want to highlight some of our partnerships that we have. So we've got knives that we're giving away with our life memberships as well through a great partnership with Frontiersman Gear. And I'll show you the knives. I got a batch that showed up today. So beautiful, beautiful knife. This is 475 Canadian. We're throwing those in for free. We had 50 of them. We moved a lot at Sheep Show, and as well as the Sheep Show in Penticton, as well as Reno. So I have 9 that showed up at my house here this morning, and we've got about the same in the US. So beautiful knives. I'm getting a custom as well done up by Tanner out of Frontiersman Gear, based out of Prince George. As well as other items that we're giving away with our lifetime memberships. This is a Darren Epp acrylic photo. Hard to see, but wow, everyone knows Darren Epp. So you get a nice acrylic photo there. We've got a life member pin as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you get. I probably missed a few things. Alpine Fuel Care Package. So you're getting a lot of bang for your dollar. And the main thing is it's going towards funding an organization that's passionate about goat conservation. So that really is the membership component. I did want to talk about the advocacy, which we do. And another thing I'm going to mention, if you're really passionate, we're looking for some board members. We typically can allow up to 9. We have 8 right now. Like I mentioned yesterday, we've got 4 in Canada, 4 in the US, but we'll be looking for a couple new board members in the very near future. And we'll be putting that out on the social media as well as through our newsletter. But if you're really passionate, we would love to have some fresh blood on the board. And we meet once a month, but there's significantly more work than just being on a meeting. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. Whether you're in the field, whether you work on educational products, whether you're going to shows, there's a ton of work, and the more hands we have, the better. So always looking for some new board members. So I want to throw that out. And I think that's about it. I've used up my 10 or 15 minutes that Chuck was so gracious to give me to kind of plug the Goat Alliance. Like I said, I mentioned it last night. I'll probably slip in a plug or two tomorrow night as well if we can. But I
For
know
sure.
tomorrow night we
Yeah.
also have a good lineup of guests and some more good stories and chatting about mountain goats. So I'm going
Well,
to now dive into. Oh, Chuck, do you want to?
couple things. Yeah. Before you I don't want to derail the conversation, but before we get off the Goat Alliance, couple things to note. Most of the chapter and affiliates of the Wild Sheep Foundation, they usually, almost all of them hold some sort of either a conference, a dinner, or a banquet, or an event, or something like that. And you guys don't do that. And I think that's a trade-off, right? It saves you some money, but that could also at some point turn into a fundraiser. Have you guys given any thought to maybe doing some sort of starting up a banquet, or is that on the horizon?
That's actually a really good question. So we're working through right now our banking setup, given we're based out of the US. So we're looking at different opportunities for fundraising, including raffles. That idea has come forward as well as having a smaller banquet. We're just kind of working through logistics with our banking system to make sure we can kind of be fluent with money transactions in the US as well. We are pretty fluent in the US. We're not as fluent in Canada, so we're working on that at this point, as well as our raffles and stuff like that. So it's just, there's a little bit of complexities with being a North American organization that we're working on. So yeah, and even just pushing more smaller gatherings as well, more pub nights. We just held one up in Anchorage, Alaska. That went over really well. That's another thing, just even smaller gatherings. So that's one of the challenges too, is our board isn't just in one jurisdiction, we're
all
throughout
over
North America. So personally, I make it a bit of my goal is to connect with the different directors and even staff. So I did a 2-week hunt last year with one of the directors. The year before, I did a 10-day goat hunt with one of our employees out of Ohio. So in my view, I just love to kind of connect and be in the same place face to face and spend some quality time together.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this: I've been lucky enough to hang around your table or booth, depending on the show that you're at, a couple of different places for the last few years. And yeah, I'll just say this: like the relationship you have with your team is really tight. It's just like a small family operation, and it shows up in the message and the way you guys deliver it. And it's really nice to see, and it's nice to see that the membership's growing, and it's just a positive group, and I would encourage people to jump on board. One of the things Spike Camp is going to be doing, we did it last year, and we're going to do it again. We're going to help you guys out with some sort of a membership drive with a big prize. We're going to do that for you and Wild Sheep BC and Alberta. We're just working the details out on that, but we're going to be pumping your tires here quite a bit over the next few months. So we do have a question here on Goat Alliance from Eric. I think you touched on it when you were going through the memberships, but he's asking if you take monthly or quarterly installments on the life memberships.
We do on the life membership, so we do monthly on the life.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good point. I forgot to mention that. I do want to put a plug, Chuck. Spike Camp's been phenomenal. The 2 years that you've been in existence, just in kind of bringing together the passionate conservation groups, and just it's been a pleasure. So I just, on behalf of the Goat Alliance, want to thank you and Blake for kind of all the work that you've been doing. Been very, very open, honest, and supportive in every way.
Awesome. No, we love it too, man. Thanks. All right.
So do we want to do, like, I know you have a few of the giveaways. Do you want to do one now, one in the middle, and one at the end?
Yeah, let's do it.
For that? Which one's the first one you've got?
Well, let's do a Goat Alliance swag. I mean, you just finished the Goat Alliance stuff, so yeah, pick a prize, and Blake will pick a winner.
I think I'm going to leave one of the knives for tomorrow night, but let's go with a hat and a shirt.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
And I'll throw in stickers too, hat, shirt, stickers, but I think I'll leave one of the knives for tomorrow night.
Sounds good.
Okay. Let me
There's a
just pull the
teaser.
number here. So we have number 78. Josh Pyers. Congrats, Josh. I got your name down, so we'll coordinate after the show here.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay. And when
Right
when
on.
when we do ape, I think you're doing do ape later too, ape gators.
Yep, 8 and Stone Point. We'll do maybe halftime and one at the end.
Yeah, I can put a good plug in for ape since I've been using the gators for a couple of years, so they've been solid.
They're awesome.
Solid.
Yep.
So let's get going here on some of the goat stories, which I've been waiting eagerly for I don't know how many months on. So we're gonna. I don't know if everybody knows a little bit of the background. I mean, Ed's been solid as far as being in the goat community and being on Spike Camp. Everyone knows Ed for his photos from his trail cams, which has just been phenomenal to see that over the years. And then Chuck, you typically are interviewing, so you're not really interviewee. So I don't even know how much people know about sort of your histories, but I do want to start off with a little bit of your background and what kind of fueled the hunting passion. So we'll start with you, Chuck, and then we'll head over to Ed.
Sure. Well, I think I've mentioned it a couple times on at least on our show, and I've been on a few podcasts of from other channels and stuff. But I was born and raised in Saskatchewan and moved out to British Columbia when I was about 21 years old. And my hunting history in Saskatchewan grew up basically on a crappy little dirt farm in central Saskatchewan. And we were a mixed farm, so we had cattle and grain. And my dad and my uncle were my hunting mentors at the time. And for us, my dad always said the cattle are what we live off of as far as financing goes. And when hunting season rolls around, we're gonna fill tags to fill the freezer. And so I grew up meat hunting. It wasn't until I moved to BC a couple of years after we got started in our family business out here on the coast. I met a friend through work, an older gentleman who had, he was part of a large group of guys from Vancouver Island dating back into the 60s. They built a hunting camp in the Central Caribou for moose up in Region 5, just basically a moose camp. And just out of the blue one day, he invited me on a moose hunt on a limited entry tag just to come along and help him. It was just the two of us. We went in on that hunt. I think we had one little kid at the time, our oldest, Dallas. And this gentleman, he was, oh boy, he's about 30 years older than me. And he was sort of my mentor and got me into moose hunting. We connected on a bull on the last day, and probably for the next 10 years or so, we went into that camp every year, and moose hunting was sort of my jam. And it wasn't until, it would have been about 2017 or so that I took my boys on a river jet adventure hunt on the Musquatch-Oshodi. We did an elk hunt, and at that time Kevin Willis owned the operation, and we did an elk hunt. We didn't end up killing an elk, but Kevin made a comment to Blake and I as we were riding out on the boat. He said, I drove past your camp every day for 10 days and I never saw you guys once at the river. And I think on that hunt, we had never really been in the mountains, but we logged over 100K on our boots, hunting elk way up in the backcountry. And we didn't know what the hell we were doing for calling elk. We were just probably pushing bulls all over the place. But he said to us, he goes, you guys don't know it, but you don't know it yet, but you're sheep hunters. You guys got what it takes, so you're sheep hunters. You just don't know it yet. And so
Ed, I got a question. So before Ed gets going, so did you really hadn't hunted goats till you connected with Ed, or
that's right.
Did you kind of make an attempt in the past on a sheep hunt or one of those trips? Did you have a tag ever, or not really?
Yeah, I had tags. So I started sheep hunting in 2000. I think it was about 18 or 19. Went on the first sheep hunt, and one of the things I always do every year is I buy every tag I can buy. no matter what. And just to support, well, I guess I would hope it goes to support hunting. I think that's up for debate whether our tag money actually goes to the bottom line on hunting resources, but I always had tags. And on every sheep hunt that I've been on, which I think is 9 or 10 now, we're always running into goats. But it always seems that I'm on opener, and in some cases the goat season isn't open yet. And in some cases it is, but we just never really pursued them. Blake and I came close back in 2020 or 21. We were in Region 6 on a hunt, and we did see a couple nice billies during our sheep hunt, and we made a play on them, and by the time we got close in on the group, they were gone, and it was just nannies. So sort of a one little failed attempt, but it wasn't until I started to really connect with Ed and, you know, just really get into it. And he offered to take me on my first goat hunt.
Okay, so there you go. You basically had mixed bag or mixed tags in your pocket, so never really focused on goats.
Yeah, that's right.
Before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Ed, goat guru since he was 8, lives up north, far north, sort of north. Let's hear your story. Some of us have heard your story, but you've been in the bush since you were a kid.
Yeah, no, it's ever since, even before I could walk, of course, Dad was dragging me in and doing all that stuff. But I was 8 years old when him and a friend of his took me for a goat hunt. I have bits and pieces of memories of it, of course. And the thing that stood out the most was we were standing up on this mountain, and Dad and his partner John, they were glassing some goats, and they were a long ways away. And Dad had said to him, he said, you know, if we go over there, we're going to be spending the night over there, and we didn't have any nothing with us, no camp, no food, no nothing. We had a space blanket back then, one of those silver tarp blanket things. And all I remember is John, and he lives in the bush, just on solar power, has generator, like just bush as it gets, and big hairy guy, and all he says is, it'll build character. And so away we went. Next thing I know, we're peeking over the ridge and looking down at these goats, and I shot one, and it fell down the mountain into this hellhole of a spot where the other guy that was with us, he had a son the same age as me, and we couldn't get down into it. So Dad and his partner went down and got the goat, and we ended up sleeping underneath a balsam tree, and it was snowing and sleeting and raining and pretty ugly weather, but we had a campfire and goat on a stick, and there was a pretty good time. It wasn't a big belly. He was 2.5 years old, but he was my first goat, and I'm proud of him.
That's pretty good. That's a year older than my first goat. So
that's the rifle. My granddad built it for me when I was 7. And I took my first goat when I was 8 with it, and it's been sitting in the safe ever since.
What's the caliber on that one?
6.5 by 55 Ackley improved. It's on a Mauser 96. Weighs 6 pounds, right on the money the way it is.
What bullet were you using on your first?
The 160 grain round nose Hornaday. Of course, I didn't get to see the goat, but from the goat's reaction and what Dad was saying, it did a pretty good job there on it.
Just the one shot?
Well, Dad followed up behind me just to be sure, of course. But that was it was a good one. And I hit it in the liver, and I heard about it. The rule was you don't shoot the goat in the liver because you're eating that, right? But
yeah, I'm a bit of a liver guy myself. I appreciate the liver. That my dad was right on. So, so Len, now we're talking about you two had connected on a hunt, and what were you looking at? Like when people are asking like hunt, I always say, well, what are you looking at? Are you looking for a summer hunt, fall hunt, late season hunt? What was kind of the discussion initially? Like what kind of hunt duration? Were you looking at open area, limited entry? Like were you throwing out all the options initially, or were you pretty focused on a certain kind of timeline and location?
Well, I'll just give you the sort of, there's two parts to the story. So what we decided to do last year when we were chatting about doing some hunt, it started off as a discussion. Let's, we've connected. Ed and I have been friends for a few years, mostly through the gun world more than anything. And, because we're both kind of gun nuts, and we both have gunsmith history in our family, his grandfather and my uncle. So Ed and I can talk, and Blake will tell you, we can talk till we're blue in the face about old rifles, and it just sounds like two old hens in a hen house talking. It really does. And so we were chatting, on one day, and we were saying, we should do a hunt together. And Ed's never shot an elk. And so Blake and I were planning an elk hunt up in the Peace Country, and we invited Ed to come along on that hunt. And my goal was, all right, let's try and get Ed a bull elk. Well, there's a whole nother story on that. We did have a very fun trip for the most part, but we had a bit of an incident with an angry local who kind of ruined our appetite for staying in the area. So we cut our hunt short. I guess that's a polite way of saying what actually happened is we got shot at. So that's a whole story for another episode, and I don't want to blow that story up tonight because it's got its own episode in it. But we had a lot of fun. We connected. Blake was with us on that hunt. Ed's wife Carolyn was with us, and we just knew right away. When you hunt with someone, Marvin, you get that connection, and boom, it's good to go. You just know, yeah, I could do this. So then from there, Ed just basically offered up and said, "You haven't shot a goat yet. Let's do a goat hunt." And so basically I kind of hosted him on our elk hunt, and Ed took it from there, and I'll let him explain how the planning went on that.
Okay, Ed, let's take it away.
Yeah, I kind of had a spot picked out. It's off the beaten path quite a ways. You don't really hear about it, and that's kind of what it got me looking at it. And I had a couple spots picked out, and a general area planned to camp at. We were going to set up a camp by the vehicle, and we kind of had an option of hiking out or doing some glassing from some logging blocks. And so I had my girlfriend and my daughter along as well, and they weren't going to do any hiking, but they would stay and do some glassing for us or whatever. But so we pull in, and just before dark, we're trying to get our camp set up before it got dark on us. And I just happened to look up behind the tents, and there was a white spot on the mountain, and not where I was expecting we would be going hunting. And pulled up the spotting scope, and sure enough, it was a billy. So we watched him for the day, and yeah, that's kind of. I'll let Chuck kind of carry it on here, because
we're talking like right at the get-go here.
Yeah,
exactly.
But how many days had you kind of booked for this hunt?
5 days, I think we had.
Okay, so 5 day decent
four
weather.
or 5 days.
And what was your time?
Yeah.
September?
Yeah, last week of September.
Yeah.
So we're setting up the camp, and we're in this valley, and you could see this mountain range kind of behind our camp. And when he spotted the goat, I think it was about a kilometer, like from as the crow flies, maybe a bit more, kilometer and a half to where the bull was, where we spotted this billy. But the one thing that we learned right away, what I learned right away is, it's a weather game as far as hunting from the bottom because of the clouds and the fog. So we get our tent set up, and we get our camp all going, and we're cooking dinner. And, Ed just happens to turn around and look up and do a quick glass, and spots this billy, or this goat, which we presumed was a billy at that time. Just, like he can tell you how he identified it. But we just got a few minutes. We couldn't even really get like a real solid, we couldn't get any digiscoping on him or anything. It would just happen so quickly. And then it fogged in, and, we continued on. That was it for the night. And then next morning, I think we were fogged in most of that morning, right, Ed? Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much all day that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. We were on the mountain that he was on. That mountain stayed fogged in all day, but we had drove down the road, remember, and glassed a different area. Didn't pull up any other goats, but definitely came up with a couple of game plans to do some hiking if we didn't pull up that other goat again. But yeah, that whole day, the mountain that he was on, it stayed socked in. It would come in and out a little bit behind camp, but when it did, he wasn't there. And there was then there was kind of two bulls, and the next bull, neither one of them to me, like they looked like goaty, you know, but there was no mountains around them, like big mountains. So it was caught me off guard, right? And yeah, we didn't spot him at all in that same bull the second day.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
you guys
And then,
making a play to like take your camp up the mountain, or you just, I mean, you're not that far away in a way, but I mean, a kilometer and a half sometimes in nasty terrain can take a while.
yeah. So the kilometer and a half was, you know, as the crow flies on the glass. So we made a plan. We waited. I think we did sit out, and then we drove around and glassed that next day. And then it was the following morning, we were fogged in again, and we made a plan. Yeah, that's right. We made a plan. We said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to wait and see what the weather does here. And both Ed and I were getting pretty restless at this point, just sitting around drinking coffee, glassing. We'd gone up the road, you know, did a little looking around in the valleys, but we knew this potentially was a pretty good billy. And so we decided, well, let's make a play. We'll go hike up. We'll glass this bull that this billy was in. We had yet to see him. And then we started our ascent up the mountain, and we worked our way up. And I learned real fast a couple of things. First of all, it was straight bushwhacking. What was that shit called on the ground? Ground birch, right?
Ground birch, yeah.
Oh,
it was as high as we were.
Oh, so is it what I call that like buckbrush? That's your feet
Yeah.
hardly touch the ground, so you're getting tangled up, and it's to go like 100 yards, it's taking
and when
a
it's
long time.
wet, it's like having skis on your feet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
And
not bad
we'd
for
had
blow
weather.
down.
Well, it depends. We had a bit of everything getting up there. It
Okay,
wasn't a long distance, but it was a nasty climb. I mean, do you remember how long it took us to get up into that spot where we glassed from, Ed?
It was about 3 hours, I think. But
Yeah.
it was steep, just steep and slippery, and not a lot of blowdown. You know, that was nice, but just it was steep, and then the ground birch, when it's wet, you step on it and your feet are sliding out from under you, and you got your poles, but half the time you're grabbing onto branches because you're, you know, then it was tough slugging up that area.
So do you have are you going up there for an overnighter, or are you just going
No,
light?
Day
light.
run.
just a day. I think coming down, like we were down in under an hour, I think, or about an hour.
Okay.
About an hour coming down. Yeah. So then, we booked. You know, we bust our way to the top, and we played the wind right. It looked for a little while like the sky was gonna clear up, actually. So we were pretty optimistic that we'd get up there. And the way where this goat was, we were kind of coming in the backside of sort of the back end of this one bowl, and the goat was on the other side. And we kind of figured it would be, if he was where he was the night before, we would be in that probably 300 or 400 yard range is kind of what we thought. Now, it's hard to tell from the bottom. We were looking on the maps and stuff. And we got up there, and we got there. We peeked over the edge. He wasn't on that side of the mountain, but the bowl that he was in the night before, he was close to the top of it, and it was sort of a feeding area and bedding area. You could see there was some grass and stuff. So we thought, well, you know, let's sit here and just wait and see if he pops over. Well, shit. I think it was Ed, 15 minutes, and the fog rolled in, and
we sat there for another 3 or 4 hours just under a tarp in the rain, waiting. It was longer than that. I think we were there probably 6 or 7 hours.
Pretty much all day.
It's going to be a long day. So you guys left like first light or like super
No,
early?
kind of mid-morning. But mid-morning. Got up there midday. I think we got back after dark by the time we got down that first night. So there you go. You know, it was at this point it was all weather. And we didn't know. We had presumed that this goat really didn't care that we were down in the bottom. But when we look back, kind of in retrospect on it, we think that goat obviously. One of the lessons I think I learned on this was goats are pretty sensitive to pressure, and I think in that particular area they don't see a lot of pressure, human pressure on the hunting side. And he saw us down in camp that first night, and he was exposed out in the open, and then he was gone. So we get back to camp. It was so great having Ed's wife and daughter there, because we got camp. We come back, it's like dinner served, pretty bougie hunt, right?
I'm telling you right now, this isn't like a goat hunt I've been on, really. And I was thinking that, like, most times first time goat hunters, like, they're saying it's the worst thing they've done, the hardest thing. This is sounding pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think it's all about, I always tell people that, in my job, I got a lot of people on my team, and I've had people say, man, you're like, you guys run a real great operation. What's the secret? And I always tell them, just surround yourself with the best people possible, and they make you look fantastic. And that's exactly what happened hunting with Ed and his crew. So yeah, we come back, we've got our tent, or he's got his wall tent. I had my own heated tent. We have a nice dinner, and just relaxing. And I'm going to say this: one thing, if you ever have the opportunity to hunt with Ed, you guys talked about this last night. I think Adam mentioned it. There's more to the story than just the hunt, and there's more to appreciate than just the hunt. The one thing I noticed with Ed is the moment you get in the bush, he just wants to smile, take it all in, and enjoy every single minute of it. And we would stop on our hikes, stop, have a little break. Out comes Ed's phone, and he's taking pictures all the time and selfies. Like, this man truly enjoys the mountains like no one else I've ever hunted with. It's unbelievable. So.
Thanks.
That's good. That's good to hear. That's who you want to be with. So no, that's pretty cool. So
yeah. So Ed, what happened next, man?
Well, that the next day after we came down,
that was
the next day we went to drive down the road, and we only made it not even about
2 kilometers,
a kilometer maybe,
and we stopped
to
glass
the opposite side of the road from where the goat even was.
Yeah.
And did we stop for a leak? I can't remember.
We stopped, we parked, and we were pointing across. The truck was pointing across the valley.
The other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got out to have a cigarette.
Yeah, that's right.
Went around behind the truck, and I'm pulling up my binos, and we were planning on glassing this big valley, and then grabbing our packs and doing a hike. That was our plan. We were gonna go for an explorer here.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna laugh. This Ed comes back casually, and he opens the door, and he goes, "I found the goat." I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, he's back here. He's up on this other bowl on the backside of the mountain, way around in another complete bowl, way at the back end of this valley." He says, "I've been up here," and his exact words are, "I've hunted up here a lot, and I've never seen goats back there." And so out come the spotters. We pulled them up, and I think it wasn't a kilometer, but it was quite a bit far. I think it was like more like 2, I think, when we looked at it, right?
It was a couple
where he was like as the crow flies, again, back up in this bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But between us and the bowl, you got to go through a log block, and then you got to go, depending on your route, you would have to kind of do straight up again through the buckbrush, up the backside, trying to make a play. So
some second growth. You have to go through. You said no second growth.
No, it was a clean logging block. We had a skid trail.
Yeah. I was hoping that you'd get that experience of that, like, 10-year-old second growth where it's tight and hasn't been thinned out.
Yeah, no, we had a nice skid trail to come out on. It was only for about 200 yards though.
So. Yeah, and then it was straight through the shit. And I think we left the truck. That was pretty early in the morning, right? Like, I can't remember
the 8 or 9 maybe. Something like that.
Yeah, and by the time we got up on, so there was this sort of a horseshoe shaped ridge that we wanted to get up the backside on that bowl. And I think we got him, we finally we crested that around 11 o'clock, right? It was like still
Yeah.
before noon, but creeping in on noon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the weather was holding out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weather
we
was
got
great.
lucky.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
day
it cleared right up for us.
Like blue sky, or just wasn't socked in.
just wasn't.
Wasn't socked
Cloud-
in.
Cloud
Yeah,
was high enough.
I
Yeah.
remember the
ground was
still wet. Like everything
everything was slippery.
yeah.
still, but
It wasn't raining.
raining on us at least. The bush
Was wet, but
So then you're on the stock, or did you identify it when you were down below at 2 kilometers that it was a billy, or yeah, you could. What
yeah,
was the signs just for the new folks, just to kind of what gave you the indication it was a billy?
well, he was bedded when
when we picked
him up, and this the way he was bedded. He had the big shoulders, and definitely had
had a big face.
face, big head. It
It was
it was one of those goats where you looked at him, you knew it was a billy.
Yeah.
He had
had everything.
even
Even like
his
his
bases were so big
big and
and glands that when you looked at him, like they stood right out. It
didn't
didn't
even look like
there was space between
his horns.
through a spotting scope.
So yeah,
Um,
you were pretty pumped then heading up the mountain. You were pretty focused, saying that's a good billy. Did you stop and pick some
Yeah.
berries?
Not a single
Berry,
I haven't seen a
No
berry.
here.
What the berries last year were phenomenal. Like
Oh,
I was
really?
hunting. We
We
were
didn't
hunting.
see any.
We didn't
Oh, it was
see
it.
some of the best I've ever seen. It was just crazy, but I was a little bit more coastal. That was mid-September, but okay, I'm surprised you didn't see berries. But
Yeah,
No,
no berries up there.
okay, now let's move on to the stock.
well, we
Sure,
kind
kinda
of
so-
lost
Go ahead,
them
Ed.
there.
We
We kind of
lost them because
the
the bowl was a bit
bit of horseshoe,
and of course we're skirting the side of it 'cause
we don't want to be
skyline, and we picked up a goat on the other side of the bowl, but
Oh,
and we
yeah.
didn't quite clue in
in, but
because we still had to get around, right? And we're looking and
we're thinking, oh,
that's
that's
a different goat over
there, and
how and
we
looking
looking
where we thought the goat
should be
and couldn't
pick up the goat.
so we thought
That our goat,
seen us or something, and
and this was a new goat.
because
There was no way he could.
couldn't move that far,
Remember,
and then we
we
Yeah.
got another
500
yards up,
the horseshoe,
and everything
everything started to
realign.
and then it's like
Yeah,
when you line it up from the truck, and up this
horseshoe.
it all makes sense now. And so for a bit there,
We thought we
we had to
get
get up into some pretty
gnarly area.
area 'cause from that angle
It looked
pretty bad where we first seen them, remember?
Yeah,
And-
yeah. Actually, I remember that now because as we were coming up, that when you're going through that country and you kind of get to that level of altitude where you start seeing, I don't even really want to call it subalpine, but we were close to the top, and that's when we started seeing goat sign in the timber. So we were
Yeah,
picking up beds. There was tracks. There was goat hair. There was goat shit everywhere. We slowed right down, and this is where for me, I really became the student. I relied on Ed. I told Ed going into this, I said, I know I'm not gonna have the same bar set as you have for caliber of goat, but for me, it's about maturity. I want to have a good mature specimen of a goat. And when we first spotted this billy on the first night, I asked Ed, I said, what do you think? And he goes, he looks mature from here. He's worth a second look. We should probably try to find this goat if we can. And as we were busting through the timber, coming up on the timber line, as soon as we hit goat sign, it was a different Ed. Like I just noticed, he was his typical,
He's not so relaxed. He's not so
he's
relaxed.
not so relaxed. No, game face was on, and we made a couple of as we got up to the backside of this bowl. Again, Ed's like, okay, I'm gonna drop my pack and sneak up and peek, see if I can see him. And he when he came back, he goes, he's not in the same spot, but I found another goat at the back end, and that's what he's referring to. Is it was what we thought was a different goat, and it looked like, oh my God, he's in a completely different spot. So from that point on, I was like, all right, do more listening than talking, follow the lead, and I'll let Ed kind of walk you in as far as what we did next.
Yeah. And just what kind of distance are you at this
Oh,
point?
What were we? No,
well, when the shot was 376,
Yeah.
but
So-
when we were initially peeking over the ridges, we were another
Oh.
200 from, right? When we first
Yeah,
spotted him,
we-
it was like 600 yards or something, 5-6.
Okay, yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and then we
We got closer. Yeah, and then
just kept
it was quite a few goat trails, like
Chuck was saying
lots of tracks and beds and turds, and just we could kind of skirt the mountain in
along goat
trails,
um
and pretty easy to stay quiet,
okay, and
pretty spaced out
trees.
trees, pretty easy going. There was once or twice we had to go
Backtrack
to get around some rocks here and there, but it was
it was pretty good.
good.
And
And
then yeah, we
we got up to kind of where we
thought would
would be sort of shooting
shooting range
and dropped our pack,
packs and
peeked over the
the edge.
Chuck could you give me your range.
Rangefinder
That's right. And I
peeked over
peeked
the
the
edge
edge and
and
picked him up and
said, yeah,
he's right there. We're ready to go.
go. So that's
Yeah,
where
this is where
So,
Yeah,
so did you get another look?
Mood.
Are you, I mean, that's your goat, right? You don't really need to take another look. It's mature. You probably see the Roman nose. You've established that. So it's really, once you get a good shot, you're going to
Yeah.
get ready to go. I mean, I was going to ask this. Others are wanting to know what you're shooting, what caliber. I mean, you geek out on us for a bit with your setup.
Sure. Yeah. So, about a year and a half ago, I picked up a Gunworks climber from Omer, chambered in 300 PRC, topped with I had a VX6 3.5 to 18 by 44 with an illuminated dot, and I had that rifle restocked with a Fierce stock. The only reason I did that is I found that the Gunworks climber has a very, I'll try to get this visual right, has a very vertical grip. And I truly believe it's super ergonomic for calibers with recoil less than the 300. So I think every other climber that you would ever buy, I don't know if they make one in a 7 PRC, I think they do, but anything below a 300, you're fine. But what happens is the trigger guard, when you fire that shot with that 300, that trigger guard was smashing my finger during load development. And it was one of those things that just kind of drove me nuts. So my good buddy Don Lynham, he loves the climber stocks for 7 PRCs, 6.5 PRC, and all those different calibers. So as soon as I was chatting with him about it, he goes, well, I'll trade you. He says, I got a Fierce stock. Let's trade you. And the Fierce stock has more of a traditional grip, which, to be honest, I'm a traditionalist with my rifles, geeking out, as you said, Marvin. And I like that better. I'm more comfortable with that style of a hand grip. So Don took it to our buddy Mitch Kendall. Mitch restocked it, changed it up, and I tried some different bullets this year. I'm a Nosler Accubon guy, kind of through and through, but I always wanted to try the hammer bullets. So I developed a load with 100 and I think they're 192. I think they're 192 or 195 grain hammer bullet, and I had that rifle just shooting. I could shoot flies at 200 yards with that thing, even with a 300 PRC. Like, it was one whole groups all day long. And so I had practiced with it out to 1,000 yards. And my comfort zone for maximum, absolutely maximum, worst case scenario would be 600 yards. And I don't even like saying 600 yards. I'd rather be 400 and in. And so we got the rifle's dialed. I'm totally confident in it. 20-inch barrel. It's a bit of a handful, but it's effective. And so this is where, we're doing that final stock, and Ed comes back down and he says to me, he goes, okay, he's in a good spot. We just got to wait for him to get up. So you might as well get set up. So I belly crawled up, and there was this perfect place. It was basically a plateau on the edge of this spine ridge. So there was about 6 feet. I could just lay straight out, I laid down in the prone position. I have a Spartan bipod, a javelin bipod on that. I got set up, and we had enough time where Ed could put his spotting scope up and put his phone on and record it. And we actually have, Blake's going to play it, but we actually have the shot on video here. So
Okay.
go ahead, Marvin.
Let's roll that.
So it's 376 yards. There was really no wind, right, Ed? It was like dead calm.
No,
and
it was calm.
even at that range. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll see if Blake can pull this up.
Yeah, working on it here. Give me one sec. So,
He's
The
been
audio.
he's-
all right, here we go.
Good. Crank the audio up on that if you can.
A good one.
Right there.
Nice shot, man.
There you have it.
Nice shot.
Yeah, play it again because it's just so
It's-
cool. I love
slow-
Ed's reaction.
If you could put a thumbtack on the exact perfect spot, I think you would have put it there.
Good one.
Nice shot, man.
All right.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's where you were aiming.
Yeah. So with that caliber, I knew, like, just from, I've shot several animals kind of on that angle. I actually shot a whitetail buck this year in Saskatchewan, basically in the exact same sort of angle there. And, you know, it happened so quick. It was one of those things where, you know, he could have went up, turned completely broadside, but then it looked like he was going to climb up. And given where he was, I mean, there was no plan there. I had such a good rest. I had the crosshairs right on him, and where that little red circle was, I just center massed it and touched that trigger off.
And it looks to me like the retrieval, I mean, it looks a bit wooded there, so you're going to be, he's obviously in a spot that you can get to him. He's probably going to be tricky. It's going to be a little steep and gnarly, but you kind of knew that in advance or not so much in advance? I'm just curious on that. And then see how the bullet, I want to know how the hammer obviously worked well, but did you retrieve that bullet?
No, we didn't. So we'll back up a little.
Yeah.
So that spot, I wish we included a photo. I should have texted Blake a picture of where the goat was, because that was a discussion point that Ed and I had. Like, once he ranged it, he came back and he's like, you know, depending what he does in the next couple minutes before the shot, if he goes one direction, we got to wait, because it's not going to be a safe retrieval, depending on what he does. But if he kind of stays where he is and just hovers in there, we knew we could get to him. So it was pretty interesting, right, Ed? Like, we pulled the shot, we dropped him, and I'll let you can kind of walk through this is where, again, I became the student. I did my job. As far as the hammer bullet, I'll just say this. I've never used one before, and given the circumstances of what we had to do to retrieve this goat, not retrieve him, we could get to the goat easy. It was getting out of where we were at with the goat. That was going to be the tricky part, is getting off the mountain. We were in a really tight spot. That goat fell down and he got hung up on a tree and was basically kind of lodged. And we had once we got him out of the tree well of this little tree on the side of the mountain, we had, I don't know, 4 feet kind of each direction, Ed. That'd be generous, wouldn't it, to work on?
Yeah.
And,
Luckily, we had a row of trees on the downhill side of us, so like it was all safe. There was no worry about rolling off the mountain or anything. But to pack the goat out the way we got in there was going to be pretty tricky, because just the wet grass and then little chutes you have to cross, and it was a little bit sketchy getting to the goat. But getting going down the other way, it was good going, except for the first 50 feet or so, as with that retreat patch was on a bit of a ledge, and we knew if we could get down into that creek, into the runoff of the mountain where the creek is, then we can get down, because it was all grass. But getting to there was It was a little
Yeah.
bit tricky.
It was a little bit tricky. So your plan was to get to the goat, come back up, or just head
No.
back down the mountain?
We knew we could get back up if we had to. It wasn't
Yeah.
going to be fun, but we knew we could.
Yeah.
But once we got there, I did have some rope in my bag, so we figured we can rope our packs down that 50 feet into the chute, and then once we're in the chute, it's pretty steep and wet, but at least it's grass. You can kind of dig your heels in or your shins or whatever, right?
You're in the chute with. Is there actually a little stream there?
No,
where the
that's
goat
just the
was?
rocks.
Okay.
Just rock.
Now,
Yep.
do
Right.
you have a
Yeah.
photo of the? Do you have your photo available, or is it on your phone? I'm just thinking that I saw your photo when you
Oh.
posted it before
Yeah,
I've-
with the goat itself.
the trophy shot.
Yeah, and then
Yeah, I'll
So
pull
you
it up.
got
Give me a
down-
sec. You guys keep talking. I'll find it.
You
And
have it,
then-
right, Blake?
so you got down to the goat. It took a little bit of time.
Yeah, and back to the bullet. Let's just forget before I forget about that. Yeah, people are asking how that hammer bullet did. Well, obviously that shot was, the old. I think I've heard guys call it the CNS, the central nervous system shot, and that's what it is. Like that snapped the breaker right now. Done. Like he was dead before his chin hit the pavement. But when we start to get ready to process the goat, I wanted to do. Well, I was just going to do a shoulder mount, but Ed talked me into a half body because he loved this. The coat on this goat was beautiful. But when we started to skin him out, I noticed like the bullet entered kind of on that quartering two into the chest frontal zone there. And we noticed on the backside, there was 3 little pinholes of blood where fragments of the bullet had exited. But the main body of that hammer bullet stayed in the body cavity, we think, because I don't think we didn't recover like a full exit hole, right? I don't remember that.
No, just 3
Yeah.
pinholes. And I think the shank was down behind in the ribs there somewhere.
Yeah, but when we touched that, like when you move that body as you were skinning it, it was like a bowl of jello.
Yeah.
So, my conclusion on the hammer bullets is, they kill shit dead. And I shot a mule deer a little bit later in the season. Yeah, so you can see the tree. There's a little bit of that. He was hung up right in that little tree well right there. And then right sort of behind my boot, that's kind of where we had to work with. You got more than
So
one
you're-
photo, Blake?
That lush green, that's like mountain heather. I love that stuff because that's pretty grippy normally.
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
Yeah, no, it was
Nice.
it was
That heather is nice too. Usually that's pretty grippy.
yeah, I know those creeks
Well,
so
I
had
see.
that.
Oh yeah. So hold that photo,
Lean.
Blake. Sorry, this is the chute that. This is the chute. Is this the chute we roped the packs down? It is, right?
Yeah. So up and to the left, that we climbed down through the rocks. That's why we had to rope the packs down. But then we had, I think, 100 feet of rope. So I just said, well, I'm just going to keep lowering it until we run out of rope and we can pick up our packs down there. And so I lowered mine down the 100 feet of rope and then went down and then untied it. And then you pulled the rope up and lowered yours down next.
Yeah.
People often will ask like rope or no rope. I mean, it's a good point here to bring up. Like I always bring a rope and 100 usually minimum. Winter hunts I bring 200 even I've utilized, but it's the rope isn't to like do a free,
No free climbing.
no, it's no free climbing and using your whole body. It's really it's sometimes to give you that extra assurance when it's dicey, but then to lower the packs and stuff like that is where it comes in really handy. And sometimes you might have to tie if it's in an ugly spot, maybe you got to anchor the goat and tie the goat with, to some kind of tree of some sort so you don't lose them. But
yeah.
So Blake,
that's nice.
roll back to that picture of the pack out there. So if you guys look up, where the one with me with the pack. Yeah, that one. So if you look sort of straight up from the goat's horns, right up, you can see there's a tree line right at almost at the very top. That tree line in the middle of the frame comes down. There's a ledge visible there, sort of about 3/4 of the way down that one tree line. That's where the goat was. And if you go all the way to the left corner, almost the left corner up on where the rocks, where the big peak of the mountain comes down, the rocks to the left, and then it hits that first set of trees.
Yeah.
That's where we shot from, right, Ed? Was that little bench right there that you can see in the corner, right? Yeah, go a little bit left with your mouse, Blake. Kind of just right in there. Isn't that the spot? I think it's somewhere in there.
See the most, but we shot from the very highest peak.
Okay, so maybe it was higher then. Yeah, it was higher. It was that next bench up.
Yeah, we came up that ridge, and basically at the top corner of that photo is where we shot from, right off the top of the ridge there.
Yeah. Yeah, so the easy part was the shot, and then
Then the work begins.
Then the work begins. And I think I'd like to talk about this for just a minute or two about, my experience walking up and seeing this creature. And so my assessment on it, and, when I walked up on that goat, I think at that very moment when I saw that Billy laying in that tree well, it sounds a little tacky, but my life changed. I was like, as soon as I saw him there and where he was living, and the fact that, I just harvested this animal in his world, and I took one look at that thing, and I walked up to it, and Ned's like, take a minute and just, his exact words were, take a minute and check this animal out. And the first thing I did is I walked up. You think I would just grab the horns and, oh, great, got a Billy. But the first thing I noticed was his feet. And, this Billy had a really nice coat for a late September goat. Like, as far as I knew, it was a beautiful coat. And Ed was like, wow, first thing he said was, I can't believe the coat on this goat for this time of year. Like, it's almost a winter coat. And I bent down on one knee and I kind of grabbed its hoof and I looked at the bottom. And, last night we were talking about boots, and you were mentioning how they walk on these little shelves, and the bottom of their hoof has these little ridges, and, it's almost, I don't even know how to spot. It's like it's a Vibram sole built for an animal, right? It's just incredible.
The cloven hoof, it's just crazy how they're set up. Like, I mean, you couldn't engineer them any better than that. And I always find the same, like, I just love to look at those hooves, because that's what keeps them, that's what makes them survive really where they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and then
just crazy.
From there, I was just like, I was mesmerized by this animal. I was like, this is like the coolest animal I've ever seen. And, just walking up and moving it around and positioning it. And then when we started to work on it, realizing what these things are made of. I mean, they are like, they reminded me of like a miniature version of a bison, right? Like, just the front end on these things and just everything about them, the structure of the face, and just blown away. Just an amazing creature. So hooked for life. And then
it is pretty emotional, and then that's just to show the appreciation for that animal. I mean, that's pretty cool to kind of be open about that. And if a person kind of loses that, it's not a good sign, right? To kind of just like the respect for that animal, what they've done, where they live, and then just be able to harvest something like that. Just, we're so blessed to be able to, have these opportunities, and because it's not a lot of people do, right? It's just.
Well, and then now you got that as a baseline, right? So the next one, it might take a few trips to beat that one.
Well, exactly. Looks like Marvin dropped off, but I'll just say this: like, I remember the discussion we had about picking the Billy and choosing the right one and just making sure it was mature. And this goat by no means was he's just not he's not a Justin Kwiatkowski goat. He's not super old, but I can't remember what we aged him at. He was 6, right? 6.5.
6, yeah. That's a good.
So,
it's a good goat. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have been happier for sure. And I think, the real fun. Oh, there you back. You dropped a little bit of. Is that windstorm hitting you guys up there, Marvin? Is it
Yep.
there now?
I don't think so. So because of where I live out in the, I'm not down, I don't get the best reception, but I purposely hotspotted so I wouldn't
Yeah.
have an issue.
No
But
worries.
anyways, we're back. I didn't realize that I lost you. I don't even know where I ended.
Yeah, you dropped off, and I was just you were talking about the harvest, and then Ed was, I can't remember the next comment, but basically, yeah. So, like, back to the story, we get the goat, we start processing it. It was, I can't remember the time of the day. It was sort of mid-afternoon, right? I would say the time we got to them.
Well, we got to the goat. Then I think we were probably an hour before we even put a knife in, and we had a coffee and BS.
Yeah, that's right.
Checked them out, and we took it all
Photos.
in. Yeah,
And,
we had,
Ed, you have another.
hey,
No, he's dropped again.
froze up. Yeah, we had some daylight there. We knew we were going out in the dark anyway. We figured as long as we can get off the cliff before, the rest of it was pretty easy, which it turned out not to be easy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's funny, and we'll talk about that. But I think, for everybody who's on the show, that the glory part of it was the photos, and then we process the goat, get them in our packs, and then it was interesting because we got our packs loaded, and Ed and I are sitting there. We're looking at the different ways we could get off this mountain, and here's where the dumb flatlander comes out. I said, well, why don't we just walk over on this way and go out and down? And Ed, I can't remember exactly why, but he just looked at me and he shook his head. He goes, no, I don't think that's a good idea. We're going to go this way. And I've got video of Ed going around that little, sort of little chute. And Ed's literally, what were your boots? They're Scarpa, the mountain boots, right?
Yeah, the Mont Blancs, I think. I use them for winter boots mostly, but I used them on that goat hunt, and getting off there was that doing that was, I'll use those boots again for goat hunting from now on, just because my hand legs wouldn't have cut the dirt like those boots did. And definitely
those are stiff boot, right? Those are basically a mountaineering. That's similar to what I use, right, with the Les Sportivas. So for side hilling, there's side hilling and stuff. You just can't beat it.
Yeah, like you were talking about yesterday, the confidence in your footing with them compared to just a regular sheep boot, I guess, like my hand legs. It's night and day. My feet don't fit them good enough to do a week-long trip in them type thing, but to do a couple trips up the mountain, they're not bad. But
so what do you, Chuck, what do you got on your feet, Chuck?
So I run for the last couple of years, I've been running Scarpas, Crispy boots. Okay, yeah, and they are the I can't remember, the Brickstall, I think. So, and they're great boots. I love them. Like sheep hunting, I just love them. But I learned a lesson about boots. I think what we'll do, we'll take a quick pause. Maybe we should do a giveaway because Blake just told me we got about 45. So then we'll come back to the pack out. And we'll finish up that.
So Blake, the pack out, and then we're going to get to the next hunt. Ed's gonna get warmed up for the winter hunt. So let's do that. The draw for which one you want to do? The ape gators?
Gators, sure.
Okay. While I draw the name, Ed, I don't know if it's just me, but I think your audio seems to pitch come in and out a little bit. So I don't know if it's you got closer, or we could always do a swap to your iPhone and then we could bump you on as a speaker on your iPhone.
I can give it a shot, you bet.
Yeah, maybe try that. I think I still hear the issue on the audio there. So, Chuck, while I'm drawing, just keep an eye on inviting in Ed with his other device.
Okay.
All right. 2 thumbs up for ape gators.
Okay. So, who do we got? Just give me a sec here.
So are you in the chat now, Ed? I'll see if I can find you.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. I'm going to invite you in. We'll see. Okay. So once you get on that one, we'll cancel out this one and we'll see. You got battery on your iPhone?
Ape Gators is what we're giving away there, Chuck.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Travis Omrod, you are the winner. Congratulations. Is the audio better in the chat? Everyone, that sounds better?
It does.
I think it's
yeah.
pretty good. Travis is pretty happy with his Gators, so that's good.
Nice.
Yeah,
Perfect.
man.
Oh.
All right. Just
You're
in
gonna
time
love
for the
them.
winner
Okay,
goat story then. That's good.
Now I can see.
Okay,
Yeah.
are we gonna do the quick pack out, or was it? It wasn't
Yeah,
so quick.
Yeah, quick pack out. I can kind of, I'll burn through that, and then we'll jump on the other story, which is probably way more exciting than mine. But anyway, yeah. So we rope the packs down, and we get them back on, and we start working our way down the bowl, and we realize we have to side hill around the bowl, and then around the other side of it, and down to the truck. And it was going to be pitch dark and steep, and it was this freaking ground birch crap again. And this is where the boots, I think the boots were the difference maker for this on the way out, on the side hilling through that shitty slippery conditions, because I must have fallen 150 times with my pack and rifle, and I think Ed might have slipped 4 or 5. Yeah.
How was your edges on those soles? Did you look at the edges?
They were new. They were good. Yeah. Like
Okay,
my boots were fine, but part of it is I'm just a clumsy shit, and Ed's like this, agile mountain man, and I'm a lot beefier than Ed. Ed's got to be careful on a windy day, or he ends up in another province. Not me. Anyway, I'm super excited, and that when you got that elated, I've got my animal, and we're bullshitting and talking all the way out and navigating through the timber. But we had to cross this little creek, dried up creek, and Ed makes it across safely. I stepped on a rock, and I hit a slippery, mossy rock, and my feet went out from underneath me, and I went straight down, fully loaded pack and rifle, and landed on my ass on a rock, and I heard a crack as soon as I hit. And I was like, God, I hope I didn't break my scope. Well, it wasn't my scope, it was my tailbone. And
better than the horns.
Better than the gun and the horns. Yeah, exactly. And Ed's like, you all right back there? And I stand up, and I'm like, I think so. Well, it wasn't until like the next day when I went to climb out of my sleeping bag, and I realized, yeah, something's not right. So yeah, the next 4 weeks I was nursing a very, very painful wound. But at the end of the day, we get back to the truck. We got back to camp around 11 o'clock. And this is where it became pretty epic. We had like the craziest Northern Lights show that I've ever seen, and the best bacon and eggs, hot bacon and eggs, cold beer that I've ever had in my life. And we sat out under the stars till like midnight eating bacon and eggs, having a cold one, watching the Northern Lights, and it was just epic. So yeah. That's
was
it.
A strong
That's the
finish.
story.
Wow.
It was a strong finish. Yeah.
So I need to ask, would you do it again, Chuck?
Tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely.
Not one and done. So
not one and done. So this year, so Ed and we've got plans for a couple of hunts. Ed's got to balance out his time off, but Ed and I, unfortunately, Blake can't do a sheep hunt this year, just with some commitments with work and family. But Ed and I are going to do a sheep hunt opener. We're going on a 14-day sheep hunt, and then in September, Ed and I both immediately said we got to get Blake up here for a goat. So I don't know if we're gonna hit the exact same spot, but Blake's gonna be up the same time of year in September, and I'm gonna go along and be the cameraman and Sherpa, and Ed's gonna be the chief guide. So we're gonna get the young lad, hopefully get him in on a goat, or get him goat hunting for sure.
Well, that's pretty cool. And what I also liked is, Ed, you've been on that mountain before. I think you said you'd been on it, or at least you'd looked at it, and you've never seen a goat before, but yet you'd seen a whole bunch of sign in timber.
Yeah, I've been not on that particular mountain, kind of across the road and down the valley little ways. I've been down there and seen lots of goats. this area, you know, like definitely it's goat country. It's one little mountain, and then it's about 2 kilometers to the next, like pretty big mountain range, right? So if you would think goats would be in the big mountain range, not on this little outcropping of rocks across the valley, which was kind of where this goat was, which it was still just like any other goat hunt by all means, but not a place where I would drive up and look first for sure.
Cool. And then that goat, how old was it then in the end?
6 years old.
6. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So mature.
Yeah.
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 Well,
like I'm pretty sure in the rut, like he would cross the valley and go over to the main mountain, I'm sure, because we didn't
Yeah.
see any other goats. I'm sure there is
Nothing
a
else,
couple
yeah.
floating around, but not enough to support a rut,
Yeah.
you know, if
Yeah.
that was a big goat.
He's going to be moving in a few weeks' time, right? He would have been moving to where the ladies are hanging out. So for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Ed, so let's get into the next hunt here. So I take it a couple guys called you up, DM'd you and said, we're coming north. Can you help us out? I think that's
Yeah.
my take,
That's a-
but I don't know any of the details. So you can start this. We're not tag teaming here. So it's Ed, it's pretty
Yeah.
much
No,
It's
he
all
was a
you, baby.
friend of mine for a bunch of years, and we had swapped some hunting information a bunch of years ago. And in trade, I'd give him some winter goat hunting tips. So he was putting in for an LEH. I think it was his 5th year putting in, and he finally got it. Well, it would have been last year, but because the season runs till the end of February, he made plans to come up. Well, he kept his schedule open. We kind of were watching the weather windows for February, and it was getting later in the month, and the sheep show was coming up. And I told him, I said, like, are you going to come? Because if not, you know, I'm going to head down to the sheep show. And the weather was looking good, so he packed up his truck and a buddy of his and came up here. Yeah, showed
So-
up pretty late. We drove into Smithers and lots of ways past Smithers and pulled up in the dark, and we loaded up the sleds in the dark. It took 4 trips, I guess, to get our base camp in. Set it all up, and the next morning was every day was pretty gloomy. Just kind of light fog, little bit of snow. When you looked in your spotting scope, it was almost like heat waves. But of course, it's cold, but so it's not heat, right? And even when it wasn't snowing, just because of the wind, you would get that same mirage. See, it was so hard to get a good look at some goats, like from the distance we were at.
is this isn't your first winter rodeo, but for these other two, is this their first winter goat hunt?
The first winter hunt, yeah. They both hunted mountains lots of sheep and goat hunting. One guided for a bunch of years, so yeah, they're not new to goat hunting by any
Right.
means. But first winter.
Is this a new area for you then too? Is this no,
No.
you've been there. Okay.
Yeah, no, this is the same area. I've hunted a lot in the winter time.
Yeah.
Mostly solo, a little bit with my girlfriend. I've never pulled a goat out of there. Just it's always been kind of more pleasure to get out and look at goats than anything. So yeah, we got in there and seen lots of goats, you know, as the weather coming in and out. The first day was pretty gloomy. Picked up on a few goats. I think we seen 4 billies the first day. Second day, same thing. It was, we could hardly see the mountain, but we did pick up on one big goat, and because of the light and the way heat waves in the scope, we couldn't make it out. And I knew that it had a long horn, like it had to have been 11 or 12-inch horn on this goat. And in my gut, you know, I was 99% sure it was a nanny. But the guys I was with, they're ooh and on, and you know, I don't know. If it's a billy, it's going to be a long billy, you know, and if it's a nanny, it's going to be one of the biggest nannies I think I've ever seen. So the third morning, we left early, and we were in our glassing spot at daylight. And as soon as we picked her up in the morning, we thought she was a billy. I think we were on her in about 6 hours. And we came up over the ridge. We knew she was going to be just over the ridge, right? So we were pretty excited. and peeked up, and we had a game plan. So there was 3 of us. The shooter had the rifle, I had the spotting scope and the camera, and the third guy had a tripod. And so the guy was going to have the tripod ready with the legs extended, because we're in pretty deep snow, to get the shooter elevated, right? So we had this game plan set up. So we peek over this ridge, and right away, there she is looking right at us, and probably about 350 yards away. And like from that distance, you could see a lot of black on her head, but I couldn't say Billy or not. So I'm getting the scope set up, shooter's getting set up, and he's saying, "I'm on her. What do you think?" And as soon as you got the scope on, you can see a big patch of hair between her horns, and it was just like I guarantee she had 11-inch horn on her. She was just a mammoth. But yeah, it turned out to
with
be an
some
ag.
age then. Like it
Yeah,
was a
she was
mature. That was an old. I was cut out here, so I didn't hear it all. So I thought you said
Oh,
she and her. So I thought you chasing a nanny. So I was going to get talk conservation here, but you
yeah, no.
you were looking for Billy's, but there was a big nanny there, which is
Yeah, well, just because of the light, hey, we couldn't tell. 'Cause we're through the spotting scope, we're looking about 3 kilometers maybe. And the dull light, it was all by herself, and she was in a spot where you think that would be where a Billy would be. And we just had to get a look. I knew if it was a Billy, it was going to be a long Billy. So yeah, we got up there, spent the day getting up there, and peeked over the ridge, and sure enough, it was a nanny. So, it was no sweat. These guys, they're happy to hike, and we had a good time.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah.
And
that looks like nice wintry conditions.
it was balmy.
So yeah, you're on me. You're late February though, so the snow's pretty crusty, I take it, and there's not near the snow levels as normal up there.
There wasn't much snow at all until we got out of the timber. In the timber, like there was 6 inches. We wore crampons through the timber. And then once we got out, like it was up to our waists in some places where it was wind drifted. And so where we actually set up the chute, we were in a tree well, and the wind was just howling. It was blowing the snow into that tree well. So like you could hardly even see out of it. Yeah.
And you guys got snowshoes, I take it. Everyone's got snowshoes and
No, we left the snowshoes below. So as soon as we got
Okay.
to the timber, we ditched the snowshoes and went in crampons. And once we got out of the timber, we just kept the crampons on. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a bit slow moving though if you're into 4 feet of snow, but
Well, these guys I was with, I've never seen people in shape like these guys. They're both firefighters, workout, healthy guys. But I've never witnessed anything like seeing these guys go up a mountain before.
and they're a couple of years younger than you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the one guy, like he's like, "Don't worry about it. I'll break trail, no problem." And actually, I've got a Baker's cyst in the back of my knee that it started to give me some issues last summer, and I went and got it ultrasounded, and they said, it's in there. If you want, we can take it out or we can leave it. I didn't want to get surgery, so I'm like, well, let's just leave it in there. And stalking that nanny from lifting my legs up so much over the snow, it actually started to get pretty sore. And the next day, it was flared right up. Like my whole knee, the whole side of it was swelled up because of this cyst in the back of my knee. So anyway, we come down off that nanny, and when we knew that there was a big Billy on a different side of the mountain, that we had seen him the same time we seen the nanny. And we had a game plan already. As soon as we seen the nanny, we're like, "Okay, let's go back. If we're back in daylight tonight, we'll get eyes on that Billy and we'll head out after him in the morning." So we ran down the mountain. Just at dark, we got to where we set up our spotting scopes to a glassing spot there. And sure enough, that Billy hadn't moved about 100 yards. The Billy from the first day we seen him to the 4th day when we shot him, didn't move a total of 300 yards, I bet. And the only time he would move, he would be feeding. And so we got eyes on him, and he was still in the same spot. The next morning, we were at our glassing spot before daylight, waiting for daylight, and just as it was breaking, you could make them out. And we just went for it. You know, we didn't know how long it was going to take to get up there. I figured that we wouldn't have been up there until late afternoon. Maybe that's if I was going at my pace, but those guys, I think we pulled the trigger just before noon. And it was nice weather the whole way up there. As soon as we pulled the trigger, the fog came in and the snow and the wind. And spoiler alert, I couldn't get to the goat. The last 100 yards, it was just that the chute that they were in, even when they shot, I was kind of, that's not a very good spot. And these guys, like, they're beyond my skill levels by far. And the confidence, he just said, no, we'll get there. That's no problem. And like these guys, they know what they're doing. So
Did they have rope or need the rope at all?
No, they had ice axes, which made a big difference.
I was wondering about the ice axes. That's something I've just started in the last few years. And I'll tell you, for late fall, winter, you got to bring the ice axe.
Yeah. Well, my knee was so blown up I got about 100 yards below where the goat was, and it was this steep chute. And basically those guys were using their axes, and they would reach up and grab a tree or a branch, and they would swim over top of the snow. And so they got some video of it was about 30 foot cliff that they had the ice axe up to get up to this goat. And it's definitely, it was pushing the limits of where I would go personally. But
So Brian's asking about the video. So do we have a video of this at all, or?
Yeah, we got the kill shot. Blake's gonna pull it up.
Yeah, I'll grab it.
Maybe Ed, you can tell us a little bit about the distance, and we'll circle back after the shot here.
Yeah, he was right at 200 yards. The guy was shooting a 7mm. I believe it was a Rem Mag with a Berger bullet.
Okay.
And yeah, he hit him in the heart, and Berger bullet exploded. I found a little bit of it in the liver when I got it home and chopped it up. But so he hit it perfect the first shot, and followed up with 2 more shots. But I think he had missed both of those. But it only needed the 1 shot. He was done within about 10-15 seconds there.
So Blake, can you roll that?
Yeah,
there we go.
Okay. Nice shot. Again. Break him down. Hit him again. Yes. Yeah.
It's a good thing you didn't do 1 more roll there, because there was a cliff to the right. 2 rolls might not have retrieved him.
So did he hang up there?
Yeah, he stayed right there.
Cool.
Okay, and you're pretty much level then.
He was up a little ways.
A little bit, but not
uphill a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're sitting in about waist deep snow right there in this tree well. Same idea. We came up over the rise, and we knew that when we seen him that morning, he's standing in his bed right now. When we got off the mountain the day prior, he was bedded right there. That morning that we shot, we sat until daylight and watched through the spotting scope, and he was still in that bed. And when we got and pulled the trigger, he had just stood up out of his bed. So when we got up onto the ridge, we knew where we were going to shoot from. We had a landmark there, this tree. And same thing, I had the scope ready, and the one guy had the tripod, and the shooter had the rifle. So we kind of had a system, because we knew that all 3 of us, he's gonna see us. So we got to get the setup right, and it all worked out good.
So the hike down was a lot of fun, and you got down pretty late, I would take it.
Yeah, actually the hike down. So this goat had hardly any meat on it. And I don't know if you notice in the video, when the goat turns, you can see his back end, how gaunt it is. Gaunt in the belly, his back like just his whole hips. There's nothing to him.
Yeah.
So I think the shooter, he had a full cape and 2 front shoulders in his pack. I couldn't keep up to him going down the mountain, and I had a quarter in the liver. And the other guy had the rest of it. And so yeah, going down was definitely easier because we had a half trail broke. But so 2 of us had crampons, and the third guy had boot chains. The guy with the boot chains had a heck of a time in the timber, just slipping and sliding.
Oh,
He was on his butt all the time.
yeah. Even those micro cleats, I've used them once, and no, I just the big crampons, 1.5 inch cleats is what you kind of need to dig in. Even in like if there's no snow, I've used I've only used the cleats once with the shallow, and they're just not the same.
No.
What do you guys recommend for a brand name on crampons? Is there any particular ones that are better than others?
This was the first year I've ever used them, to be honest. I packed them lots, and I packed both them and micro spikes, and I've used micro spikes quite a bit. But after using the crampons this trip, I always thought they'd be big and clumsy and awkward, like rolling your ankles and stuff. And it wasn't like that at all. Like you could hardly even tell they were on there, besides the positive footing. I think
I've got a Petzl. I got Petzls.
I think that's what mine are.
They're a lighter weight. They're really nice. I've had a pair for 25 years, but these Petzls I only got a few years ago, just because the other ones I had were more the universal. They'll fit any boot, whereas the Petzls are meant for a mountaineering boot. So, and they're lighter. And then I handed my other ones to my son. So they're nice to have in the right circumstance. I mean, in the winter hunting, I wouldn't be able to get up some of the mountains I've done just because it's so steep and icy in the timber. It's dangerous without them.
There's no way we would have got to where we went without any boot chains or crampons. There's no way, no. And the guy with the boot chains, he said like he wouldn't take them again. He would definitely take crampons next time.
Exactly.
Mine are G10s. I remember that. Whatever brand makes the G10s.
G10s.
Okay.
Can't remember what they were.
Yeah.
But,
so that goat was an old timer, I take it.
Yeah, he was. I had him at 10 years old, but the CI inspector had him at 11.
Yeah. Okay.
So 10, 11. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and so we kind of guessed him to. Well, we knew he was 6 or 7 or older when we went up after him. Just a lot like Chuck's goat. His face was so long, looking through the spotting scope, and his body. A lot of times you look for the pot belly. He had huge shoulders, like he was big, but he didn't have a pot belly. He had a big sway back, big black horns. It just kind of it added up to an old goat. So we kind of knew.
So I got a question.
Old. Yeah.
So the winter goat, I've only shot one in February, but the goat tends to, like, the hair pulls out because they're not as healthy. Did you find the hair pulled out easier? How was the hide condition?
It was actually not too bad. I kind of compare it to an old dog. You take a young dog and an old dog and how their furs compare. It's kind of the same. He was matted up and he just looked old, Talking to the local taxidermist, because he was always known I was after a winter goat, and he would always say February was the worst time of year, because by the time they get brushed out and get all the mats taken out, there's not much fur left on them. And I can see that now after with this goat.
And the guard hairs are often broken off and stuff. Like it's generally your best conditions are going to be kind of your late October into November, but after that, I find it's more patchy. It's not as uniform. The hair pulls out. The goats they're not moving because they're not healthy. They've had the rut. There's hardly the food. So they're just not moving a lot in that cold weather because they got nothing left.
Go dormant in the winter time or something.
Yeah. So we're getting close here to wrapping this up here. Do you want we got another 5 or 10, or are we pretty close?
Well,
yeah, we got about 10. Got about 10.
questions, and I mean it's kind of two different goat hunts. It's kind of I love the stories. I mean, I could
I'll,
go
I'll
all night.
add that winter goat, I was always nervous about a February goat tasting bad, just because of what they're eating and stuff. And though I canned all the goat that I brought home. But the other guys that were eating it, they said other than it being tough, the flavor is excellent.
Yeah.
The canned stuff I have is really good. And I was telling Chuck earlier, something that I'm noticing though in this meat that I canned is between the meat fibers is like a membrane, almost like a fatty, slick membrane.
Mhm.
It doesn't have a taste, like it's still, everything tastes good, but it almost adds a texture to it that I've never seen before. And I wonder if it's a winter thing, something that they get from whatever, but pretty interesting, and no fat, not a
Yeah.
lick of fat on the goat at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Really good teeth. His teeth were super
Mm.
healthy. Yeah, no
Yeah,
fat.
it's just, which is more common. I recall the one I took was a billy, but not older billy. But yeah, there's just that surviving the winter takes everything out of them. I mean, they need to kind of fatten up pretty good in the fall. That's why when you take one into, a lot of goats hopefully have a pretty good layer of fat on them to make it through the winter.
Yeah,
And if they don't, they're going to be in trouble.
Hey
yeah.
guys, a question for you. You guys are both goat experts. What do you think, like, sort of that? Obviously, this goat, he was sort of past his prime and on the decline, safe to say, at 11 years old. What really is like a typical average age of a goat before, as far as term goes? Do they average in the 10, 11, 12 range if they're lucky?
I
Yeah,
I think
I'd say
so.
11, 12 is kind of like, I mean, some get beyond that, but I was doing some reading and it said like between they age 9 to 12, but I mean, it depends on the
Mhm.
location and where they're at and obviously the conditions. But I would say when you get to 12, that goat's going to have another year left. I mean, most of the goats we're taking that are 12 and 13, their teeth are not looking so good. And
Mhm.
they're pretty much on their last winter. Maybe they'll get another one.
I kind of wondered about with this goat when he moved like an old dog, just stiff
Mhm.
and sore. And I think, a goat, if it takes an injury early in life, I think that's going to dictate a lot on how old they're going to live. And
Yeah.
don't nannies generally have an older age than billies as
Yep.
well? Um,
Yeah.
I think.
They do for some reason. They just like us on the humans,
Women
right? They
outlive
tend
us.
to, yeah, they're a
Yeah,
little bit smarter
a
and
little bit
probably
smarter.
eating better, and it's very true. Well, that's pretty cool. That was a pretty cool story, and that's pretty fresh in your mind still. So you're all good. You healed up?
No, actually, I
No.
call well, our doctor system here in Burns Lake is pretty bad. Our hospital's closed half the time. Um, I had an appointment and he was supposed to call me and he never called me, so now I got to make another one, and I got to get this cyst out of there before sheep season for sure. So
I see Clay there. Weber's asking about the gloves you use for winter hunting. So
yeah,
any
I
thoughts?
used actually just work gloves, cut proof leather work gloves that we use in the mill. We didn't have any really cold weather at all. I've got
Mhm.
some just regular skidoo gloves for if it got cold, but
Yeah,
yeah, just leather
yeah,
gloves. And I've always got two or three pairs. If a
yeah,
pair gets
yeah.
wet,
Like I'll bring a set of mitts that I can, if it's super cold, I'll put the hand warmers inside of them if need be. Then you got your gloves when you're hiking up. Sometimes you just, yeah, more of a work glove if it's warmer.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm usually bringing, doesn't matter whether I'm hunting fall, summer, winter, I'm always kind of bringing more than one set just in case.
yeah. Yeah, we were in the day we went up after the shot the Billy, we were in t-shirts half the day hiking through the bush. Like it was quite warm.
I see
Yeah.
Marie's asking what Petzl crampons. I'd have to look at my list here. I don't know mine offhand, what brand, like what model they are, but I can dig that up and
Yeah,
tomorrow.
we
There we
can
go.
tomorrow.
Murray
Yeah,
says
for sure.
tomorrow. Yeah, we're not done. One night's not enough, or 2 nights isn't enough for goats.
No, no. I
That's
mean, we
the
could do
thing.
this. We could do
We
it.
could do.
I mean, if that gig you have in Kamloops doesn't work out for you, Marvin, you've got like a full-time job as a podcast host, right? Like we could do this all the time.
Well, yeah. If I get the right package, I could be done sooner than later on my day job.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Well, guys,
Exactly.
we should probably start. We got one more giveaway to do, and then maybe we'll do a little conclusion here. So um, we have a really cool kill kit system from Stone Point Outdoors. Cody Rockefeller, really good guy, gives back a lot to conservation. He's starting to build up his brand. Have you seen his stuff, guys? Are you familiar with Cody's stuff?
No.
Yeah, yeah. He had a booth at the sheep show, Marvin, and he's got some really nice stuff. I used his game bags this year, and I really liked them. So he's got a kill kit with game bags. He's got a little tarp for laying your meat out. It's not within reach, but it's close. Anyway, I'm going to do a little video on it, and then he also sews up these. They're like a food bag that you put in your backpack, quite big. So he's given us that kit to give away. So Blake, did you pull a winner?
Yeah, just grabbing the number here now. It looks like Bradley Howard. Congrats, Bradley.
Howard. Awesome. So just for the prize winners, it's going to take me a couple days to get your shipments off. We got to get addresses and stuff. Marvin's going to ship the RMGA swag. So, well, thanks, guys. This has been, as I expected, this has been a great show. Always fun talking about hunting stories. That's what most of the listeners always ask us for. So tomorrow night, who have we got teed up? We've got Adam, we got Caden, we've got Marvin, myself, and Blake. So we're going to be unpacking some more stories tomorrow night. So this will be fun. So anyway, yeah, anything you want to add, guys, at the end here?
Thanks for putting it on between Spike Camp and the Goat Alliance. I think this is a good thing. I see there's 90-some people tuned in tonight, so it just shows the interest in mountain goats and the people that want to hear about them and learn about them, and it makes me happy to see it.
It does. Like, I mean, people that have a similar passion, whether they're hunting them or not, but just love goats, love the country. I mean, every goat hunt, no two hunts are the same, not even remotely. A lot of times, it's just so many different things come up that it's like, I don't know if there's been a hunt where I haven't learned something or haven't encountered something I haven't encountered before. Like, it's just, and that's after a lot of years and decades. And it's just like I'm always a bit anxious going into these trips too, because it's like, even though I've been at them, and I don't know, Ed, I was going to ask you about that. I was even going to ask Chuck that. I mean, being kind of into your first goat hunt, was there any kind of anxiety or concern beforehand, whether you're in the right condition, whether you got the right gear, whether you can keep up with the guys, Ed, on that last hunt? Like, you weren't concerned one bit?
No.
I can tell you, just watching Ed in action, you don't see concern. You just see, like I said, a guy he's in the most happiest state you'll ever see. For me, I wasn't concerned. I'm pretty good in the mountains, considering I'm a flatlander and I haven't been doing it as long as you guys have. But my concern always is, pressure on myself to do my job when I need to do my job. And it doesn't matter what it is. And in this case, it was, Ed saying, you got to make a shot. And for me, that was really it. But yeah, other than that, no. I mean, you got to remember, as Adam likes to point out, and he did last night, this is our freaking vacation time, right? This is our solitude. This is where you're in there for yourself. And it's like, yeah, it's spiritual up in the mountains, no matter what you're hunting, and goats are just right there. So anyway, yeah, it's awesome. Well, guys, thank you very much. It's been a great show, and we'll see you tomorrow night for night number 3 at Goat Camp. So have a good night, guys. Thanks to all the members for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That was great.